Welcome to the Penny Stock and Cryptocurrency Survival Guide. Before we get into the class itself, I want to give you a little bit of context. The class I put together several years ago, but the key thing here is that the class is about emotions and psychology. And with emotions and psychology, because we're human beings, they've always been around and they will always be around. So what you learn about has been valuable, still is valuable, and will be valuable in the future because we're humans. We're always going to have anger, greed, overconfidence, sorrow, freaking out. All those things have always been around and will always be around. And the key is when you understand those dynamics, as cruel and mean as it sounds, you can leverage those dynamics against other people. If you understand how other people are feeling, how other people are viewing different circumstances, then like I said, you can leverage that to put profit in your pocket. Yes, that sounds mean, but that's how the financial markets work. It's understanding how other people are feeling and believing and then using that to your advantage. The other note is that this course is based around penny stocks, but please realize this for you crypto traders. Anytime I say the word penny stock, you realize that you can and should replace that with a cryptocurrency. Anytime I'm talking about an exact penny stock, please realize you can and should insert in any sort of coin that you may be looking at, because the emotions and psychology is a perfect parallel between penny stocks and cryptocurrency markets. And it's a way that you need to go into surviving penny stock trading, crypto trading, or maybe you're going to do both. But you better understand how what I call the wilderness works, because if you can understand the wilderness, you're going to give yourself a way better opportunity to make money as a whole. So let's go to my desktop and let's get into the class. At this point, we have now talked about the entire penny stock wilderness in terms of the food pyramid and then the outside influences. We just got done talking about those storm clouds, otherwise known as the bashers. Now it's time to talk about the penny stock cycle. This is a very important presentation because it happens over and over and over again. Yeah, there's some differences, but at the core, at the heart, it is all the same. It's the penny stock cycle, and it never fails to unfold the way it does. Again, we've been through all this. Now it's time to just see how all this operates. And it operates the same exact way over and over again. I've touched on this, but because all these dynamics literally happen over and over again, very, very good news. It's very predictable. It's not rocket science. It's not magic. It's not anything. It's just predictable. Yeah, there's some variations, but the core, the flow, it all operates in the same time. How can this be? I probably should have made this in bigger letters, so I'm going to be sure to highlight this. So how can we predict something? You know, I'm saying it's not rocket science. I'm not claiming to have any magic. It's because everything is basic and simple human psychology and emotion. That's it. People are predictable, and because people are predictable, behavior is predictable. And going way back to that introductory slide, when we know how to predict behavior, that's going to give us the results we want, and that's what it's all about. So the cycle, it happens over and over again, and it's very predictable, not because I'm some sort of genius, not because I have some sort of crystal ball, not because I'm some magician who has all these magic formulas. No, it's just basic human psychology, and people are predictable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through this entire cycle, and then we're going to kind of run a dual presentation. I'm going to be running through just the theoretical cycle, and then I'm going to try to apply some sort of real life example alongside it. So maybe that just sounded totally confusing, but it'll make sense as we go through. So cycle step number one in the world of penny stocks is just what's hot. What is hot? What is the current popular economic headline, political? What are the talking points in the news? What is everybody talking about? Since I've been in the business, gold prices are rising. Lithium batteries, that was a hot topic at once. Oil prices are rising. So when that's happening, oil becomes very popular. Real estate, when that was all booming, and at the time of this recording right now, again, hopefully 15 years from now, who knows what that topic's going to be. But right now, the big hot topic is, will marijuana continue to become legalized? At this point in time, it's been legalized in a couple of states. Who knows where it's going? But who knows where it's going? Question mark. That's all speculation, and boy, oh boy, does the stock market and does this penny stock wilderness love speculation. So that's the current hot topic right now. I understand that kind of dates the presentation, but that's where we stand right now. There's been plenty of dates thrown around, but I like dating it because I want you to see that whether you're watching this, a week from now, a month from now or 15 years from now, it's all psychology. It's all human emotion. That's not going to change. So it's all going to be the same. Sure, there's going to be something else that's, hot at the time when you're watching this, but it all boils down to the exact same flow, and people are always acting the same. So what is hot? What's the psychological view on this? What are the emotions involved? Well, there's going to be excitement with whatever's hot. There's going to be hope, and there's going to be the thought of possibility. The unknown produces all sorts of these emotions, and that's what's crucial in cycle 1 of the penny stock cycle. So now let's take a look at a quote-unquote real-life example. This is not a real one, but this is how they go down. This is the gist of it here. So behind the scenes, there's always two things that are going on within the penny stock world. There's behind the scenes where management's hanging out, and then there's what's happening out in public, where you and I are hanging out. So behind the scenes in step 1, let's just say this is what's going on. The Apple market starts booming. Apple prices are soaring. There's lack of apples. The world needs more apples. Maybe apples cure some sort of disease or something like that. Point being, Apple, the demand goes nuts. Everybody wants apples. So therefore, everybody's talking about it in the news. You open up the Wall Street Journal, Apple's booming, Apple prices soaring. You turn on Bloomberg or CNBC, there's people debating apples. This sort of apple's good, but this sort of is even better. I mean, it's just everybody's talking about apples. And because everybody's talking about, even the president, he's getting on TV, we need more apples. Apples are, just a hot commodity because they help with this disease. I mean, you get the point. Apples are everywhere. It's just a great news headline. Everybody's talking about apples. So Billy Bob, he is our CEO. And Billy Bob, he wants to make money. So for him, he's thinking, what would be a good sector to have his company be in? Now, Billy Bob, he just wants, a lot of people like to build companies. They're entrepreneurs. Good for them. So Billy Bob, he wants to make some money. So he's thinking, what would be a good area to go into? That's very, not only is that predictable from an emotional standpoint, it's very predictable from just a business standpoint. Business sense-wise, why would you go into something that's not, very popular? So, it's very predictable too, because just going, what would make good business? Good business is going to something where there's demand. Now, there is one thing. Billy Bob already owns a public company, and that's traded on the OTCBB. However, his current business is in mining. Gold and oil were really popular talking points, so that's where he wanted to go into. He went into, he wanted to mine. He wanted to find some gold, maybe find some oil. Those were really popular. Things have cooled off now, and apples is just dominating all the headlines. So he needs to do something. He's not doing very well in the mining business, but he wants to change his company's direction and go into the Apple business. That would, probably generate some interest towards his stock. I mean, CEO, that's how he's going to make money. He's got a publicly traded company and their stock out there. He needs to generate some sort of interest. So what's hot? Oh, apples are hot. Mining is totally cooling off. So, I think that would really help out the stock quite a bit and give me a chance at creating a successful business. So Billy Bob calls up his lawyer. And the lawyer says, all right, yeah, we can do that. And the process begins. Billy Bob is now in the business of selling apples. So all that happens behind the scenes in step 1. Now, what's going out in public? Well, Billy Bob puts out a news release. Remember, a PR, that's how penny stock companies communicate. We've covered that multiple times now. And the ticker symbol for his company is Bill Bob. Now, I totally understand ticker symbols don't have this many letters, but hey, humor me. In this example, in this world, Bill Bob is the ticker symbol, and he's announcing a transition out of the mining business. Now, diversification is another very popular word that you'll see pop up, but point being, anything that is synonymous with a change, a transition, diversifying, restructuring, looking for ulterior, options, anything that implies that they're starting to take a different path, that is a very popular term, and that's what's always happening in step 1. So Billy Bob announces, in our example, we're going to use the word transition, and then people go crazy with excitement. There is so much potential with this sector. This company is starting at the ground floor. I know it's a penny stock company, but they're going into the Apple business. I mean, everybody's talking about it. There's so much potential here. So Bill Bob begins to get some volume. But wait, penny stocks are known to be shady and scams. So is this company real? Is this price action justified? And that brings us to step 2 in the penny stock cycle. We are real. That's the name of step for that very reason. Now, penny stock management understands that people, first they have an impression that just penny stocks in general are scams. They know that people are very skeptical, but at the same time, they do understand that people want to believe. People want that hope. People want that possibility. So with that being said, they do need to see things just so they can put their mind at ease. These things, they don't need to be anything spectacular. That's what's kind of funny about penny stocks is the bar is set so low that it doesn't really take too much to separate yourself from other companies out there. I mean, if I really wanted to, I could create a huge penny stock company, and it would be pretty cheap, and it wouldn't be that hard because I'm not patting myself on the back, but the bar is set so low that in order to kind of convince people that, hey, we're real, we're not a scam like other companies, it's really not that hard to do. So what cycle or step number 2 in the cycle, what the emotions they're trying to accomplish and trying to ease is, relief, confirmation, and justification. These are what management is looking to exploit. They want people to feel relief. They want people to, okay, confirmation. All right, this is, they're a real company. Justification. I was right. They are a real company. They're not a scam. So that is everything that's trying to be accomplished here in this step. So back to our example, behind the scenes, Billy Bob spends $10 on a domain name, and then he spends $300 and has a professional build him a website. Now, from the looks of things in some of these penny stock companies out there, it seems the CEOs have like a child build their site. I mean, if you've been in penny stocks, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Some of these websites, you're just like, holy smokes, that looks like it was a 3rd grade science project. It's very ugly. But in this case, in our example, Billy Bob, he spent some money. He $300 has a nice professional build on the website, so that looks good. He purchases and has some office space. So he's got a warehouse, a nice office space, and this costs him $3,000 a month in rent. In many cases, now not in our example, but in many cases, the mailing address can be a P.O. box, it can be a postal store, it could be a home address. I'm not kidding. Some of these quote unquote huge companies are just, you look at the address and then it's like the UPS store. Something doesn't add up there, but in our case, he actually goes out and purchases office space in a warehouse, and he's going to be paying $3,000 a month in rent because Billy Bob, he wants to make money. He truly wants to succeed. I mean, he's trying to build a real company here. And then we have some other miscellaneous costs. He's going to get a fancy sign for outside the building. That's a one-time payment of $2,500. He needs an administrative assistant, somebody to help him out with stuff. So they're going to pay him or her $2,500 a month. Then he wants to get some good company apparel, some t-shirts, some hats, some jackets. So that's going to be a one-time cost of $1,500. Again, Billy Bob, he wants to succeed. He's in this with the right motivations. He's trying to build a very profitable Apple producing company. He's not out to scam anybody. He wants to have a successful company. There are some other miscellaneous costs we need to cover, that are going on behind the scenes. This gets a little complicated, but in an unfavorable way, he has a loan from financiers in the amount of $50,000 so that he can purchase 10 acres for his apple orchard. Like I said, those financiers come in. He got a loan, but it's sort of complicated. But hey, I'm able to buy this 10 acres. That's what I want. So I'm just gonna go with it. That's what he's thinking at the time. Okay, fine. He buys some apple trees, $7,500. I have no idea if that's accurate enough. So again, humor me. Let's just pretend like I know something about the Apple business. He hires some more employees, and that's going to run him $4,000 a month. And then he has some mining debts. Remember, that was his previous business, and those are going to be costing him $2,000 a month. Again, within the overall, the cycle, old costs, as I'm calling them here, very common because companies, they like to change businesses, and just because you're changing the business doesn't all of a sudden mean that debt goes away. So in this case, though, he's paying $2,000 a month on the mining debt. His intentions are good, so he wants to make good on those interest payments and all that mining debt. So that's going to run him at $2,000 a month. And after 1 month, boom, Billy Bob has sold $4,500 in apples. Remember, going back to our fundamentals, what you're selling, what you've sold, that is your revenue. So he has $4,500 in revenue. Now back out in the public, the pumpers start to arrive. They know that, Bill Bob, the ticker symbol, they just entered into a very hot sector, and the stock started to get some decent volume. So they were thinking, all right, we have some stuff to talk about, and there's some potential here. Now, volume alone isn't going to be enough. They're going to need, some more things to talk about, and that way
they can really start to get that Kool-Aid going. They can start to, you know, pour out some Kool-Aid to those people. And then all of a sudden, Bill Bob, news hits the news wires about them launching a new website and hiring of 3 employees. This is just what the pumpers want. This is beautiful. And again, us standing outside with the binoculars, we're like, okay, let's see what the pumpers can do with this. Let's see if they can create any belief. But, you know, the pumpers needed something to talk about, and boom, all of a sudden, Bill Bob releases, hey, we have a new website, and we've just hired 3 people. Bottoms up, lets the Kool-Aid flow. This company has a website. They are legit. The CEO hired employees. You don't do this if you're not serious about growing. Proof this is not a scam. So this is what happens a lot. Because it's not a scam, therefore it's a good company. That's what so many people do, and where so many people get caught up. They say, all right, in this case, they have a website. They hired employees. This is all proof that it's not a scam. Therefore, because it's not a scam, it's a good company. That's not good logic. That's terrible logic in the world of penny stocks. I know the bar is set low, but just because somebody is not a scam doesn't automatically mean it's a good company. Good company in terms of long-term potential. Could it be a good company in terms of having some belief created and getting some price movement? Absolutely. But when I say good company, I'm talking about some sort of long-term investment, where they're going to make it to the big league. So again, I want to reiterate that. So many people think, oh, this company is real. It's not a scam. Therefore, it's a good company. No, false. A good company being defined as somebody that would make a very good long-term investment. So again, all this stuff is going on, bottoms up, the Kool-Aid keeps pouring. The pumpers start to go, hey, check out this picture on their website of their CEO and a couple employees. Do you see what I see? Look at their shirts and how professional they look. This CEO is a marketing genius. Now, all the CEO did, remember Billy Bob, he spent $1,500 on some nice apparel. Very nice touch. It is good. It's professional. I'm not going to deny that. It's a nice little touch. However, the pumpers equating just simply buying apparel and then saying the CEO is a marketing genius because of that, that's a little bit of a stretch, but hey, that's pumpers. That's what they do. And just remember, the bar set so low so that just even a CEO wearing a nice little polo shirt with the company logo on it, that sends people mad in Pennyland because, again, look, it's real. They have products. Look, he's with employees. It's not a scam. This is a good company. And then guess what happens? The Kool-Aid keeps on flowing. Hey, look, and this is the pumpers talking. The company just posted a video on YouTube. It gives a tour of the office and the warehouse, and it shows workers picking apples. This is so not a scam. They are legit. We have film. There is video of their office. I mean, look at that big fancy sign outside. They have a warehouse. Not on top of that, there are the apple trees, and it shows people picking apples from them. This is not a scam. This is beautiful. I mean, this is a great company. This is an investment, and this is where you need to be. And then things get even better. I mean, you thought things were going good now. Then Bill Bob, another news release hits the wire, announcing $4,500 in revenue for the month. Boom! The pumpers are going to go nuts. This company already has revenues. They have revenue. Scams don't have revenue. And because it's not a scam, this is a real company. The company's already ahead of most others. They have sales. They're bringing in money. I mean, they're not selling shares. People are going nuts because there's some revenue. Don't get me wrong, revenue is great, but just because there's revenue and just because a company is not a scam, which we've established that, Billy Bob going in, he wants to build a legit company. He's not trying to run a pump and dump. That's not what he's trying to do. He has the best intentions at heart. And hey, they have $4,500 in revenue. But boy, oh boy, will the pumpers use this to their advantage, and they're going to build this up as much as possible. Because remember, they're traders. They only get paid if the price goes up. So they're going to, twist. They're going to, make the correlation of simply buying t-shirts with your logo on them qualifies the CEO, Billy Bob, as a marketing genius. I mean, that's what they're going to try to do. And then step 3, this always happens, attempted dilution. Now, we're not talking about share dilution, just talking about the Kool-Aid dilution. There are not many guarantees in the market. However, there is one guarantee. People are always going to make dumb trades and lose money. And these people will not be able to move on. We've learned about them. You know that they are called bitter bashers. So you're going to have bitter bashers that show up, but so they're going to run their mouths. But as you've learned, bitter bashers, nothing to be concerned about as long as they don't show up in massive numbers. So that's one guarantee. People are always going to make dumb trades. and then people are always going to show up to just see what's going on. The best example of this is, have you ever been in a traffic jam and you're thinking, why is traffic so slow? And then all of a sudden you finally figure it out. It's because there's been an accident or there's been something, and people are slowing down to see what's going on. People by nature are curious, so there's always going to be some sort of just curiosity from people. Usually these are the detective bashers. They might swing by to see what's going on. But the psychological view here, the emotion that's taking place in this stage is bitterness from, the bitter bashers, and then curiosity. Some people they're just poking around. They want to see what's going on. So hopping back into our example, nothing going on behind the scenes at this point, but out in public, the bitter bashers arrive. They run around crying up a storm. Oh, I lost money. Oh, the CEO. Oh, I don't like apples. Oh, there was a worm in my apple. Who knows what they're crying about? But people just call them out. They laugh at them. They make it very obvious in what their intentions are. So there is just no dilution of the Kool-Aid going on. Yeah, the bitter bashers, they're trying to maybe do a little bit of dilution of the Kool-Aid, but it's not working. And then there are some detective bashers that arrive. However, there are many more other interesting stocks to focus their time and energy on. So maybe they'll ask a few questions here or there, but it's nothing serious. And, they're not, like I said, more popular stocks that their limited resources are focused on. And this is also why it's great that there's not too many detective bashers. There's so many stocks out there, so many few detective bashers that they can't be in more than one place at once. So that really benefits us. Doesn't mean they can't show up and ask a few questions, but when there's other more pressing, more popular stocks out there, that's where they're going to go take their attention to. So yeah, they may show up here in step number 3. You're going to have the attempted dilution from the bitter bashers, but nothing crazy, nothing happens. Few little drops of water fall into the Kool-Aid glass. But as you've seen, the pumpers are in full go. The Kool-Aid is flowing, so nothing slows down all the hype that is currently being generated. Now we moved into cycle step 4, and this one is just business is hard. We've talked about this already, but just in theory, in the cycle, another guarantee is trying to succeed in growing a business is tough. The odds are not in your favor. We talked about in the introductory one, most statistics say that even well-funded, keep in mind, keyword there again, well-funded companies, most of those even fail. So it's hard to build a company no matter what sort of motivation, no matter how noble-hearted you are. Business is tough, growing a business is tough, and the probabilities and statistics say that things are just not in your favor at all, even if you're well-funded, especially if you're a penny stock company and you're already, entering in Billy Bob's case, some debt. Positive cash flow, not easy to come by. Expenses can and will quickly begin to build up. That's just basic business. You got to operate, you got to pay people, and you got to do a lot of this stuff before any money ever comes in. So a lot of that stuff is going to build up very quickly. Now the psychological view here in emotions deals not with what's going on in public, but what's going on behind the scenes with management. And this, the emotion can range from surprise to starting to feel some desperation to just flat out stress. Expenses are mounting. They're trying to grow. There's a market out there. Their intentions that they want to do well, but expenses are starting to pile up. They got to keep the lights on. They got to keep people paid. They got to keep the apple trees watered. There's desperation that begins to really mount, and it starts to mount quicker and quicker as time goes by. So hopping back into our example here with Billy Bob, behind the scenes in step 4, management accepts the fact, or kind of already understands that, from a realistic standpoint, things are looking bad for the health of the company. Yeah, they have revenue. Yeah, they have a fancy sign out front. Yeah, they have, shirts and apparel on them, and they look all good. But, if they're being honest with themselves and realistic, things aren't looking too good. However, from the perception standpoint, they know things are going very well. They see what their stock is doing. Perception is reality, and they know right now that reality, there's a lot of belief in them. A lot of people are believing in them to succeed, so they need to keep that at the forefront of their mind too. However, they also need to be realistic and say, all right, the expenses are mounting. We need to do something. We have to pay for rent. We have payroll. There's other operating expenses. So, there's a balancing act here going. They don't want to maintain their perception, yes, but they also need to be, honest with themselves. Now they've accepted all this stuff. They understand what's going on, but here's the problem: is their balance sheet is not very strong by any means. So a traditional loan not going to happen, out of the question. They do have shares to sell though to raise the capital. if they need more capital, there are shares there to sell. So that's the key thing. Now, again, let's talk about motivation. They don't want to sell. I mean, they want to succeed. They want revenues and all that stuff to drive and be able to pay for everything. However, they have a lot of expenses, and it's leaving them with very little choice. So, they're just keeping that in mind. Business is hard. At least this is what is allowing everybody to sleep at night. They do have shares to sell if they need to raise capital. All right, let's move into cycle step 5 now, pizza slice dilution. So this, in the theory of it, penny stock management, they have 2 choices. After step 4, they're left very black and white. 2 choices here. 1, they don't raise any capital via the selling of shares and they go bankrupt. All right, that is one option. Or they raise capital via selling shares, and they're going to have to take away ownership from their shareholder base. Remember what pizza slice dilution is. When that dilution happens, everybody's piece of the pizza gets smaller. But it's one of those things where, kind of what's the, what is the lesser of 2 evils? There we go. That's the word I'm looking for. And in this case, I think it's pretty straightforward. Knowing what their choice is, what the lesser of those 2 evils are, it's time to do some strategic planning, and the company needs to keep perception as strong as possible. Remember, back to step 4, the company knows what their perception is. They've seen what their stock price is doing, and they need to keep that perception up. So it's time to do some strategic planning. How are we going to do all this stuff? So the emotions going on right now: self-preservation, honor, and delusion. Self-preservation in the mode of, well, it's either bankruptcy or we got to keep on chugging. Honor, it's honor and delusion kind of go together. Honor, they think, the honorable thing to do is just dilute ownership, take it away, because it's either that or bankruptcy. Yeah, I guess that's honorable. I mean, it's better than just hanging people out to dry, but at the same time, you're still taking away some of their pizza. And then delusion, this is where it starts to creep in. They think that they're going to be able to just raise capital, and that's going to solve all their problems. So a little bit of delusions creeps in that, they're thinking, all right, we have shares to sell, so that'll get us through this hump. Yeah, we'll see if that turns out. And then there's a very broad array, but at this point, it's a very chaotic period. The company has stuff going on. They're generating revenue. That's good. Balance sheet, cash flow, all that stuff, not looking too good. Perception, very good. Now we have to balance things out. We want to keep this perception up, but the quickest thing to, disrupt that perception is the company has filed for bankruptcy. All right, see you later. So lots of balancing going on right now. Very chaotic stage in the penny stock cycle. So behind the scenes, now that we're back into our example, Billy Bob, he takes all the necessary steps in order to sell shares into the market. Very straightforward. He's getting all his ducks in a row. So this is where things really start to, get in. Not that other steps aren't as important, but this is where things kind of start to pick up in their intensity. So cycle step number 6, the raindrops get bigger. So what's going on here? The raising of capital begins. Step 6, dilution begins and shares are sold from the authorized, and the outstanding share structure increases. And because these are just, right into the, public hands, the float starts to increase also. Now let's just talk about some basic economics, supply versus demand. If you've ever taken an economics course, you know exactly what's going on here. So when there's more supply, so in our case, when there's more shares in the float, it will require more demand, and demand in this case is being defined as buying pressure, and that's at a very minimum to keep things equal in price. Again, I'll reiterate that when there's more of something, so there's going to be more shares in the float, in order for that price to stay at least the same, there needs to be more demand to compensate for that more of supply, and that is going to come in the form of buying pressure. On the same note, if the price is going to keep rising, there now needs to be double the demand buying pressure that was originally required, because now there's more of something. So just to maintain the price, there just needs to be a matching of that supply. So there just best way to look at it there, if that they raised, if the shares increased by 10, so if there are 10 new shares, then there needs to be 10 new buyers in order for the price to remain the same. 10 new shares all of a sudden showed up in the market. Either the price is going to go down, if 10 new people step in to get those shares, price will remain the same. However, if you want the price to go up now, so let's say if you want it to go up by 10, not only do you need these 10 people to keep the price the same, you now need another 10 to push it up 10. So in total, between the 10 you needed to stabilize the price and the 10 you needed to push it up, you need 20 new, points of interest or points of belief. So point being, and the easiest way to look at it is the more shares that enter into the float, the more dilution that happens, the more belief that is needed. And this is what this is what is the death cycle. And the death cycle, it can go on for a day or it can go on for very long, but the process is what is important here. That's why I have this guy here. Point being, write this down. The more shares that are out in the float, the more belief is needed in order to not only maintain the price, but to push the price higher. Again, the more shares that go into the float, the more belief needs to be created in order not only to maintain the same price, but also push it further higher. Very crucial. And at first, companies can get away with it, but this is the cycle that starts, and just more and more belief is needed. More and more belief is needed. More and more belief is needed. And that's eventually things kind of start to not go so well, but we'll get there. Now the psychological view and emotions here. Minor worry, all right, there's some things going on, there's some dilution. Confirmation for some, and adrenaline. And adrenaline, you'll see who that's for, but there's quite the gamut here of emotions. Minor worry, that's going to be for more of, the long and strong people. There's going to be confirmation. That's going to be for some of those bashers. And then adrenaline, that is for the pumpers, because now they know that they have to step up their game. So what's going on behind the scenes? The dilution is now happening. And although it's not a huge order, Billy Bob actually gets some apples he gets some shelf space at a local grocery store. So, that's some good news for the company. But he also knows that he now needs to create that much more excitement in order to overcome the increasing of the share float. So the vicious cycle, the death cycle, he's well aware of it. He knows that, okay, there's more shares out there. So if his perception and if my stock price is going to keep acting the way I want it to act, I need to create some more excitement. So what he does, and this goes back to the strategic planning that has taken place in previous steps, he plans the news release on the same day that dilution will begin. That way, all right, that'll create interest. I mean, he understands basic economics. He knows that if he can create more belief and more interest, that's going to up the buying demand, and then that buying demand can be met with some additional shares that are coming in the form of increasing the outstanding shares. Another thing that's going on behind the scenes, revenue is now up to $5,500 per month. A little footnote there, though. In order to increase sales by $1,000 a month, the company took on an additional $1,500 a month in operating expense. So just a little footnote there. Hopefully you see what the problem with all that going on is. But, that's just what's going on behind the scenes right now during step number 6 here for Billy Bob. Now in public, Bill Bob, hey look, they just released another news release. Boy, oh boy, does Bill Bob like to put out news releases. Anyways, he releases news that the company now has its product in the local grocery store. Pumpers go nuts. In fact, one hypnotizing pumper who lives close by, he actually goes to the store and takes pictures of the products in the store. This company is so real. Check out these pictures. This company actually has a product. How many penny stocks out there don't even have a product? Not only do they have a product, click, there's the proof of the product right there. Click in the store. Therefore, this company is not a scam and it is a good company. So that's what they're talking about. This company is going to be huge. They have a product. Their product is in store. And check this out. One of our fellow long and strong people, they went and took a picture of it. Things are going so strong. And hey, remember that YouTube video? Check out this YouTube video. Remember that big fancy sign? They have a warehouse and employees and we saw their office. This place is so real. And then also in public, people do start to notice that it seems like the price of the shares doesn't move up as easy as it used to. It's still moving up, which is great. That's fantastic. But, a couple people do notice, the price used to move up a little bit quicker than what it is now. All right, I'll just kind of take a mental note of that. Now, the hypnotizing pumpers know exactly what is going on. They know exactly what is going on. They see that price movement too and how it's starting to struggle. They know what's going on. They know it's dilution. But what do they say? The shorts are attacking, those stupid scumbag shorts. This is an outrage. Those shorts are trying to destroy this company that has a real product, that has, the CEO wears a nice shirt with his logo on it, and they, have some shelf space. And remember that video from YouTube? Buy more shares. We got to squeeze the shorts. Those stinking shorts. This should be illegal. They're trying to crush the company. Blah, 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 blah. And they blame the shorts. Or another thing, the MMs, it's manipulation. They want shares cheap. They're bringing down the shares. They want the price down. They're trying to scare you out of your shares. The MM manipulation. Remember, MM is for the market maker, but market makers work for us. Market makers also work for the company. So if the price is going down because one market maker refuses to move, it's because the company is using that market maker to sell their shares and dilute. So it's not the market maker that's doing anything. The market maker is just listening to their boss. Their boss is saying, here, we need to raise capital, sell some of these shares. But, the hypnotizing pumpers, they can't talk like that. So it's the shorts, that market maker is shorting. No, they're diluting. They're listening to the management who wants them to sell shares, but, diluting, all the MM manipulation, those scumbag market makers. I'm gonna write into the OTCBB and report this market maker. I mean, if you've been around, you've seen it all. They are just flipping out. They are throwing everybody under the bus, but they do not want that D word of dilution to get out there. From this point forward, anyone who says anything unfavorable about the company, they are hired by the shorters, or they work for the market makers, or some other outlandish remark, but they are being paid to bring the price down. So they're hired by the shorts, or they're hired by the market makers. This is when things start to get good. This is when the accusations start to fly. They're just stupid. They want cheap shares. That's why they're talking negatively. They just want you to panic so you sell so they can buy shares at a lower price. All the accusations start to fly. But at the end of the day, what's going on? The companies just want to raise some money so they can keep the doors open. They're not trying to be sleazy. They're not trying to, hurt anybody. They just need to make payroll. They need to pay for their workers to be able to pick those apples. They need to pay to keep the lights on in the warehouse. But boy, oh boy, is that creating everything. People are freaking out, and the people that are freaking out are being led by the hypnotizing pumpers, because they have everybody thinking it's the shorts and the market makers. Those evil shorts and market makers. They're driving the price down. They're not letting it move as easy as it once did. Continuing on here in step 6, now you have the no life tough guy bashers. They know what's going on too. They understand. They don't have a life, so they read a lot of message boards, and they want to be able to come back and say, I told you so. So they, while providing no proof, of course, they begin to proclaim, companies diluting. You are all going to be big bag holders. Big dilution coming, and they say, I'm going to come back and say I told you so. You better listen to me, while providing no proof, no substance. I mean, yes, it is true. That is what's going on. However, they're just coming because they have no life, and while they're speaking the facts, they're just doing it in a way that really nobody can take them credible, because there's no links, there's no proof. They're just they're just there to run their mouth. We've covered what they are, and so you understand what they're trying to accomplish here. Now, Bill Bob has become quite the popular stock at this point in time. That they were one of the first companies in the Apple sector. So while the detective bashers weren't too interested in them at first, at this point in time, it is worth their time and energy to start to focus their efforts with research. So now the detective bashers are here, and they're going to start to do some research. But at this same point in time, the company announces their revenues have increased to $5,500 a month. Now keep in mind that footnote, that's nowhere near, that's not in the press release, because that the company wants to keep that perception going. So this gives the pumper the ammunition to fight off everybody, and gives them an opportunity to kind of put up a fight here. The bashers are here. Not only are you starting to get, the bitter bashers, they're always here, but whatever. Now the tough guy bashers are starting to show up, and now because Bill Bob is such a popular ticker symbol within the penny stock wilderness, now you have some detective bashers showing up. There's not many detective bashers to begin with, so a few of them have showed up. So the hypnotizing pumpers, they're starting to get a little, all right, come on, and then boom, company delivers, Billy Bob delivers, and now they have some talk about how not only do they have revenue, but they've just increased revenue. Now, I've already talked about this in, I believe, the Basher presentation, but this is step 7. This is where the pay-per-view fight comes. In the world of penny stocks, when something becomes popular, it really does attract all sorts of attention, both wanted and unwanted. You're going to have the lazy and the new people showing up, which is wanted. Then you're going to have, the bashers start to show up, and that is unwanted. And as is the case with anything in the financial market, debate ensues. Not going to touch much on this. We've described it. All you got to do is turn on, and you always have somebody that thinks the market's going higher, somebody that's going lower. Whether you're talking about penny stocks or any other, that's what's going to happen. And the emotions going on right now are ego, greed, and competitiveness. Ego from both sides. The hypnotizing pumpers, they think that they can twist things. The detective bashers, I'm a good researcher. You're not going to pull this over on me. So their ego's going. You have greed, the greed of people just that want or that don't want shares to go down, obviously. So you have little sweet grandma who used to just be investing. Now she's seeing people attack her thing, so now she's starting to get up in it. Not because she's greedy, but it's human emotion. Who wants to lose money? So that's starting to show up. So she's starting to transition from sweet little grandma to now she's driving around with that gun. And then competitiveness. Nobody wants to lose a debate. Even if somebody's wrong, a lot of times the competitiveness kicks up so much that they're going to debate. That somebody will debate, that the sky is, green. If they don't want to refuse to lose and they just want to keep on being competitive and just keep on debating, they'll argue that the sky is green if they need to. So you have all these just emotions that really come to a head, and it's just a full-out slugfest between grandma, between the hypnotizing pumpers, between the detective bashers. Then you have the stupid bitter bashers throwing stuff in. You have the the rejects of life, the no life people showing up. And it's just, it's a slugfest. And on top of this, you have the loudmouth pumpers that are running around. And, it's just mass chaos. It makes for good entertainment, but it's one of those things where there's just all sorts of stuff going on. Now, behind the scenes, Billy Bob, he's doing his best. He needs to find events that he can issue in press releases. He needs to keep feeding people stuff to talk about in a positive way. Now, operating expenses are not going down either at this point in time. In fact, they're starting to get worse. Now, remember those financiers from back in step 2 when he bought those 10 acres of land? And that thing, he kind of complicated. I think I understand what's going on, but who really cares? I'm getting the money, and I'm going to be able to buy these acres of land so I can start and grow my, my apple orchard. Well, those financiers, they're starting to take notice that the stock is doing well, and they're starting to make contact with them now. Hey, we do have a financial agreement out there. We do have a financial thing in place. And now Billy Bob starts to kind of look at things, and he thinks, why the heck did I sign those papers? What was I thinking? What am I, a moron? That's not very beneficial. That just makes things even worse now. Now we go back to the lesser of two evils. Well, he's got two things. He can just throw up his hands and say, hey, leave me alone, I'm bankrupt. Or he can start to pay people by saying, all right, I'm just going to dilute some more, sell some more shares, raise some more capitals. Oh, and here's the thing that needs to be mentioned here in this example, which happens a lot in any penny stock, is, those financiers, they also have shares, but their shares are discounted, and they're discounted massively to what the actual price, of the current share structure is. That's why they're coming and knocking. They see what's going on with the stock. So it's time to, it's time for them to cash in. So as you can see, Billy Bob, who had all the greatest intentions at once, now all of a sudden he has the expenses that are piling up. He's got the old mining debt that's piling up, and now he's got the financiers starting to knock at his door who have discounted shares, and they're saying, it's time to pay the piper, and things are just not looking too solid. Out in public, one word, drama. That pretty much sums it up. I talked about this. Bashers of all kinds are going to battle with pumpers of all kinds. This includes the grandmas, the investors who mean well but are just totally drunk on Kool-Aid. So it is just straight up pandemonium. Dilution at this point has been proven to be true, but thanks to Bill Bob and a steady stream of news, the pumpers have been able to fight off the Kool-Aid dilution. Yeah, people are bringing it up, but because the price keeps on moving up, people are saying, hey, they're diluting. That's healthy for the company. The company at this stage, they need to grow. They need to raise capital. It'll be fine, though. I know the float's getting bigger. I know the share structure is getting bigger, but it'll all be fine. This is, they're a startup company. Remember, we're in at the ground floor. We are a ground floor company. Some dilution is going to be expected. That's just part of the game. They're speculative companies. They're startup companies. People are going to need to sell shares. So they're spinning it. They're doing a good job. However, the more and more this goes on, it's starting to become a challenge. I mean, it's drama. Bill Bob doing his best to put out events and give them stuff to talk about. But when you have dilution that happens and then it keeps occurring, the price starts to not even move or starts to move even slower. Then things start to get they start to get heavy. You can't, blame the shorters and manipulation, those stinking shorts, that starts to get a little old. And they're starting to run on fumes and starting to walk on thin ice here. And then, as is the case, it happens every time. There's two views that take shape. And it's, of course, between the pumpers and the bashers. The pumpers and the longs, they dig in, they draw the line in the sand, they dig their trench, and they say the company is diluting because they are growing and need to be able to keep up with demand and growth opportunities. That's what they say. That's their argument, and they're sticking to it. The detective bashers and the no-life, who are just doing it in a classless type of way. But the detective bashers are saying they take the stand that the company is diluting because according to their numbers, they're making $5,500 a month, that's the revenue, but spending $10,000 a month in order to operate. They have zero profit, and not only do they have zero profit, they're actually operating at a loss. So those are the two sides, and yes, it can vary in terms of what the debate is, but there's always a debate that's very clear cut. One is, that the people are looking at the glass half full, saying, hey, they're diluting. The company's got to grow. They have all these opportunities to expand. In order to keep up with that expansion, you got to raise capital, and everything will be fine. And then you have what I like to call the realistic and the truth of things. No, the company's diluting because they're spending way too much in relative to how much they make. They have all these other debts out there. They have bad financing. It's just pretty much a financially bloated pig. I mean, that's what it is. Penny stocks are trash. This is why they're trash, because the numbers, business is hard, and that's what's going on. But these are always going to be the two sides you see start to take shape in any penny stock you're a part of. So step 8 now is actually sector dilution. Now think back to cycle step number 1. Remember what Billy Bob was doing there? That was just, what would be a good direction for my company to go into? And this is just good business. It's just common sense business. It's smart business to go where there is demand. If people want something, then that's the best place to be. There is a reason why there are not many businesses in the world that are selling rocks to be used as a pounding tool for a nail. I know I've used that before, but there's a reason for that, because there's no demand. It's not a hot sector. There's a reason why telegram machines aren't being sold so people can communicate. That's pretty self-explanatory, I hope. Back to some basic economics. The more supply of something, there must be more demand, or eventually supply wins. So keep that in mind. So now behind the scenes, in the step 8 here, Billy Bob starts to notice that there have been 5 more Apple companies on the OTCBB arise in the past month. He's thinking, man, I mean, I was early, but in the past month, you're telling me there's 5 new companies out there that are doing this? And this is the pretty rough part. There is nothing he can do about it. It is totally out of his control. But on one thing behind the scenes, at least he has stopped diluting for now. He's raised enough capital. He's got his payroll made. The lights are still on. So everything is good on that note. So that's good. That's what's going on. But what's really worrying him is this whole 5 new people that have, or 5 new companies that have showed up. The good news, though, is he's one of the first to move into this sector. But now with each new company, that takes away from potential people he could have as shareholders. I hope that makes sense. I mean, if there's 10 shareholders out there and there's 2 companies in the Apple sector, just basic math, 5 people will hopefully invest in each one. However, if there's, let's say it grows to 12 people that are not now potential shareholders, but now it's gone from 2 companies to 6 companies, it's a zero-sum game. The companies aren't going to have as many shareholders as they once could. So the more companies that start to pop out, Billy Bob knows, oh great, now I have to work even harder just to get those potential shareholders, because now I'm competing instead of against 2 other Apple companies for shareholder eyeballs. Now I got to compete against 10 or whatever the number is. Point being, sector dilution happens. Whenever something's hot, there's going to be all sorts of companies that all of a sudden change into that sector, and that just means that those CEOs and managements, they got to fight that much harder to keep eyeballs on their stock or gain eyeballs. And then when you're diluting and you need more belief and you need more shareholders, it's not a very good recipe. When you need something and then there's less of it because there's more on the outside that's out of your control, it makes for a very difficult situation. Now out in public, just like I said, Billy Bob, he stopped diluting. He doesn't need to anymore. But even despite Bill Bob, the company no longer diluting, the price continues to have an even harder time moving up. There is no dilution going on anymore, but it's having a hard time moving up. And this has nothing to do with dilution of the Kool-Aid either. All the drama is going on, yes, but the drama is not affecting this price movement at all. But it has everything to do that now whenever someone enters the penny stock market, instead of having Bill Bob and a couple other choices, there's Bill Bob and a whole buffet of choices in the Apple sector. So we just talked about that, but that's the impact of it, in public is, again, I want to reiterate, at this point, Billy Bob does not need to dilute anymore. So he is no longer diluting, and there's also no dilution of the Kool-Aid. So belief remains the same. No dilution, belief remains the same, yet the price is still having an even harder time going up because there's just not as many people out there that can buy it. When you open up your you open up your news and you see Bill Bob and 2 other companies, okay, great. But when you open up your news and see Bill Bob and 8 other Apple companies, well, the odds of let me change it to this so the math can be better. So when there's one Bill Bob, and then there's 5 other companies out there. Let's just do some basic math here. 1 divided by 5. Bill Bob has a 20% chance that he could turn those people into a shareholder. Great. But now with sector dilution, Bill Bob's still there. However, if there's 5 more, that puts it at 10. Now all of a sudden, his odds of getting any sort of shareholder have been cut in half, and they're only 10%. Well, that number goes to 20, and it will. I mean, people are going to keep on flowing into this sector because it's popular. Now Bill Bob's chances are 5%. So as time goes on, as long as the sector stays hot, people are going to pour in, and his chances of getting those shareholders are just going to go down further and further and further. So even if he is not diluting, doesn't matter because there's just not as many buyers out there. And even if the belief has changed, there's no Kool-Aid dilution that's occurred, doesn't matter. More competition in the sector means less eyeballs and less chance for Bill Bob to keep bringing people in. Step 9 here is just repeat. Cycle steps 6, 7, and 8 repeat over and over again. They just keep on going. The debated talking points will always vary, but the human motion is always the same. There's going to be those 2 sides formed. There's going to be drama. That's going to lead to debate, and it's just going to be between the pumpers and the longs and the bashers. So it's one of those things where it's just back and forth. Again, go back and go through steps 6, 7, and 8. That's going to keep on going. It's going to keep repeating. The key component here, though, is that death cycle. Remember, there's only so much that can be done before the float becomes too large, before the sector becomes too overbloated with other companies, and that's just going to overwhelm demand, the buying pressure. And when the buying pressure is overwhelmed, when there's just too much in the float, there's too many other competitors that have moved into the sector, step 10 happens. Step 10 is otherwise known as dead bodies. Yeah, maybe a little morbid, but it is straight up the truth. It is a gruesome stage. It is not a sight for weak eyes. What goes up, it must come down. And these, step 10 is what knocks many traders out of the market. I was caught up in step 10. I was a dead body. But for me, I wasn't, knocked out of the market. Luckily, I realized things a little too soon, but it's not like I held on. And it's just not a pretty state. I mean, it's basic economics. When demand and the buying pressure and the belief is finally outweighed by reality. So let's think about our penny stock equation. There is no opportunity and things get nasty. The emotions that are going on here, anger, people are mad. What the heck? This company was supposed to be great. They're a real company. They have products, they're in stores. I saw pictures of it. I saw YouTube videos of it. There's depression, same reasons as anger, except they're just taking on the depressed view. Denial. No, this company's going to bounce back. Remember that one example where the company was delisted and there was that person was saying there's still hope. You still got to believe. I don't remember whatever it was, but it was in the food source presentation. I mean, there's going to be some people that are in denial. Others, I experienced these last two, relief and freedom. I was finally out, and it felt like a weight was lifted off my chest. Good, I don't have to worry about this anymore. Reading about all the pumpers and bashers going back and forth, I didn't know what to think. I'm so glad I'm just out. Yeah, I lost money, and unfortunately I was up a lot of money, and I ended up losing money. But I actually feel pretty good because I don't have to lay in bed at night thinking anymore about this. So there is the sense of relief and freedom too. But cycle step 10 is just not a pretty sight. So behind the scenes, what's going on here is, Billy Bob decides that, it's time to kind of go back to the drawing board. He turns on the TV and starts to read the headlines, which is step 1. What is the hot sector? Pottery? Pottery is the new hot sector? Sign me up, coach. That sounds like a nice little sector there. However, at the same time, Billy Bob also knows that he can't go into a new hot market with a share structure that is in the billions. I mean, the whole Apple thing, man, he tried hard. But the Apple business is expensive. Man, those workers, those trees, who knew an apple tree needed so much water? Why were my expenses so high? That was just a hard. Good thing I was able to sell shares and raise funds so I could keep that, keep the belief and perception for as long as I did. But right now, my share structure is in the billions. That's not going to look very attractive to anybody as I move into the pottery sector. So Billy Bob, he calls up his lawyer. And his lawyer says, hey, well, you could always do a reverse split. That's going to decrease, the number of shares out there. It's going to raise your share price back up. So you're not going to be a 000 stock anymore. And then the lawyer kind of jokes around and he says with them, come on, Billy Bob, don't you remember? It would be the same process as when you decided you were done with the mining business in favor of the Apple business. And that's kind of the irony of things is Billy Bob had already had this conversation. I left out the whole reverse split part, but he talked to his lawyer, and when he was transitioning from the mining business into the Apple business, that's what he did then. He reverse split so he could reduce the shares, get the share price back up, and then start all over again. And look what Billy Bob's doing behind the scenes. Apple business didn't quite work out. Now he's going to head into the pottery sector, but before he does that, he's got to get a little bit better of a share structure. So reverse split, here we come. Out in public, the hypnotizing pumpers, they've been gone a long time. They knew what they were doing. That when they finally realized, all right, I can't prop this up anymore with my twisting. I am out. The stock in general is just a wasteland filled with dead bodies of those who were drunk on Kool-Aid. They were the ones that were buying the dips. They were the ones that, it was just a disaster. Thing with this is, they're always the ones that are saying, buying the dips. Problem with this dip in step 10 is it's not a dip. That's the crash. And that's not a thing that you want to be buying. The No Life Bashers, they're still there kicking people. I told you so. Yeah, you should have listened to me. They're saying all that stuff. The Detective Bashers, they're now researching and figuring out that this Billy Bob guy, the CEO, he's kind of got a track record of changing businesses and then reverse splitting. They're starting to do research. The Detective Bashers, they like to hang around, after kind of the bloodbath has ensued, just because at this point, they have a lot vested in. They've been going back and forth, throwing, punches with the hypnotizing pumpers for so long that, they now have an interest, and that's what they're starting to do. They're starting to look into Billy Bob, and they're saying, what's up with Billy Bob, the CEO? He's got a history. What is up with this track record of him changing businesses and then reverse splitting shareholders and screwing everybody over? And then once again, the Detective Bashers are right as Billy Bob issues a press release saying a reverse split is occurring so that the company can pursue a business that will bring value to its shareholders. And then the next part, cycle step 2, starts all over again. Surprise, 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 you've seen this before, but a huge note, motivation means nothing. In this example, we assumed Billy Bob had good motivations. He was sincere and trying his best to build a real company and grow it. In some cases, though, the only motivation is to sell shares. So in this case, yeah, Billy Bob, his best intentions were at heart, but because business is hard and all that stuff, it's different. However, in some cases, it's just a flat out pump and dump. The only motivation is to sell shares. However, although the motivation is different, the cycle is the exact same. The cycle is going to go through all the exact same stages. There's going to be some minor differences. Cycle step 4, if you go back, replace the word business with scamming. Cycle step 4, that was the one that says business is hard. With this business model and this motivation, it would be scamming is hard. Scamming, you got to keep up. The perception and all that stuff. So when you're scamming, that's not very easy either. But, the moral of the story and as far as the overall structure of the cycle goes, all the exact same. And the moral of the story is the same. If you invest, you lose. These are not long-term investments. As you saw, Billy Bob had every intention to grow this into a big league company, and it just didn't work out because business is hard. There's debt, there's expenses. When you have bad balance sheet, you need to dilute. That starts the vicious or the death cycle. Now you need even more belief, but because you're in a hot sector, more companies are going to continue to pile into the sector, and now you have less people to pull from in order to get people to buy your shares. And then things finally just fall over, and step 10 happens, and then you're just left with, all right, let me look around and see what else is hot. And then this is really the CEO cycle. This is something that happens over and over again. So going back to Billy Bob, without even realizing it, so this can be just a slow process, a very numbing process because things take time. Billy Bob becomes a typical scumbag CEO and all he does is change from business to business. That wasn't his intention going in, but all of a sudden he wakes up in the morning one day and that's what he is. It's not that he wasn't genuinely trying to do that, but because business is hard and those stinking financiers, the odds are that Billy Bob is going to fail and fail and fail and fail. And at some point, he's going to realize that, hey, you know what? It's much easier to just not try and it's just not, or he's going to say it's much easier to not try and succeed, but just sell shares. Trying to succeed, man, that's difficult. There's so much effort. Like I had to pay somebody $300 for that website. What happens if I just hire like a third grader to build it for me? I can save some money. And when I do that, I can put more money in my pocket. That's what eventually happens with CEOs. They realize that the whole trying to succeed thing, that's hard. But if I just go out there and create perceptions and create, the illusion and just sell shares, hey, that thing's a little bit better. So the CEO cycle, it's just going to spit out another scammer, and that's how penny stocks work. That is the penny stock cycle. So our beloved Billy Bob at some point in time is going to just end up as a scumbag CEO who's only in the business to sell shares because he realizes that, the mining thing didn't work, apples didn't work, and the pottery thing, man, that pottery's so fragile. It's always breaking. That one didn't work either, and now he's just another scammer moving on to whatever's hot in the market. So that is the cycle. That's how it works. I'm thinking that a lot of what I said you can probably relate and have probably seen if you've read through message boards, but it's one of those things where it happens over and over and over again. Sure, there's some minor differences, but the core principles are all the same.
Well, I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please do a couple things for me. Hit that like button and leave a comment below, even if you just say thanks. Also, go to claytrader.com/team, and if you want to join my private community that's got all sorts of added benefits, you can learn more at that link, then please join. I'd love to have you. It's very cost effective, and like I said, if you want to surround yourself with other quality, like-minded people such as yourself, then I hope you give it some consideration. But again, if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button and leave a comment down below.